Federal Reserve announcing it's holding interest rates steady amid an uncertain economic outlook and the war with Iran overseas. The Fed's decision will have a wide impact across the U.S. economy, affecting everything from credit lending to mortgages. Borrowing rates have been climbing steadily over the past month, sending shockwaves through the housing market. I want to bring in the home, reno, and real estate powerhouse entrepreneurs, the Property Brothers, Jonathan and Drew Scott, for more on this. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. You guys are the pros. You guys are the experts. Drew, with mortgage rates.
We've been doing this a while.
Yeah, almost 20 years now. You've had your show, right? You guys are the true experts. But with mortgage rates now well above 6%, where does that leave the housing market, Drew?
Well, this is the thing, you have a 0.5% climb or even a 1% climb or drop. Right now, the issue isn't as much the rate as it is the supply. Right. Even if rates came way down, that gets buyers really excited, but there's nothing to buy. There's no inventory. So I think right now we need to an equal problem or greater problem is to figure out the supply issue and then to try and get more accessible units available in the market. Across the country, we're about 4 million houses short of a healthy supply, and that's causing these massive this gap to spread between home ownership and the rental market. And so really, I think there are incentives that the federal government could include that would incentivize developers to build these, but also the NIMBYs need to realize that building multifamily projects so people can live where they work is important. These are not crime-ridden buildings, drug-ridden buildings. People have to understand that low-income housing in any city that flourishes, it's low-income housing, is for teachers and nurses and other service people to be living where they work.
That's a really good point to make. Where do you guys see this going from here? Is the affordability gap going to improve sooner rather than later?
Well, I mean, there's a lot that needs to change for it to improve. I mean, even right now, you look at the gap between rent versus owning is so massive now. It doesn't make sense in a lot of areas. And it's not just the big cities like LA, New York, and San Francisco now that are not accessible. It's other cities, Phoenix, Nashville, a lot of others are emerging. And the issue there, when you look at how your lifestyle, what you want for your lifestyle, it makes more sense to rent for a lot of families now. We still like to encourage people into home ownership, but as Jonathan was mentioning, there need to be better incentives in the process for you. We need more density in our cities, right? So if somebody wants to add a guest house or an ADU, they have to have the process shortened for them to do that with the city because the permitting process is a nightmare. Same for incentives. Developers, whether it's the insurance side of it or their financing strategy, they can't afford to build affordable housing in a lot of the cities. And so those paths need to change to create this opportunity that can reduce a gap.
And Jonathan, we know a lot of buyers are on the fence waiting for lower interest rates, but let's talk about builders. You just mentioned them. How are these borrowing rates affecting the construction of new homes?
Yeah, it's a combination of all things. I mean, in reality, the holy trinity of the housing, system would be having lower costs to actually build, which is why we've been investing in companies that do panelized modular building. I think that's a great solution for some buyers. Having some sort of incentives for the builders and the developers. So for example, right now, if I was to buy a property and build a building, I can only finance up to about 65% of that building, which means I'm leaving a lot of money sitting in buildings that prevents me from developing elsewhere. You look north of the border, somewhere like Canada, they incentivize developers that if you have a certain amount of affordable units within your buildings, you can borrow up to 95% of what you put into that building. So developers and builders are looking for incentives that can help them do this. And then again, if the rates do come down, then now we would have that supply so people can get into these projects.
Exactly. Now, before we go, your HGTV series Property Brothers Under Pressure debuted earlier this week. Congratulations. Without giving too much away, what can viewers expect to take away from this season?
Well, I mean, in this era of this housing crisis that we're in right now, like that's something that this show's all about. People are trying to find unique ways to get into homes. So you see, our very first episode, a family loses their home in the fires here in LA, and we're helping them build back. We have other families that are two families moving in together because they can't afford on their own, or a generational home. People are trying to understand what makes more sense, sell and get a different place, or work with what they've got. So we're giving solutions for how people can actually get into such an expensive
It's also
market.
a behind the scenes look. We don't stop the camera, so you see a lot of what would normally be behind camera, or when the cameras aren't rolling. You see it also. It's very docu-style, and I think people will take a lot away from this.
Definitely looking forward to it. Drew and Jonathan Scott, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.